This is part 2 of the moving average crossover. We are 5 to 11 here on the Euro US dollar 1 minute chart again. And we've just missed a crossover about 5 or 10 minutes ago. One to the long there. Price is coming back down a bit. But yeah, it looks like we would have gone in maybe about there. Possibly that could have been a run up. It wouldn't have been enough. Probably still would be in this trade right now. So it'd be interesting to see where that goes. But at the same time, obviously, we want to see this come downways so we can get this 50 across the 200 there. Economic calendar today is a pretty big one, to be fair. After in part 1, that was yesterday, there was basically no events going on for us. Today, there's been, well, not relevant to us, but there was plenty on the Great British Pound this morning, unemployment, average weekly earnings, claimant count change, all sort of favourable figures for them, to be fair. Unemployment coming in just slightly better at 4.7 against 4.8. 12 o'clock, that's just over an hour's time, we have got employment change for the entire Eurozone and GDP for the entire Eurozone. Those are both quarterly and yearly figures, so that could definitely have an impact if something comes outside of these forecasts here especially. And then later on this afternoon, we've got a lot of retail information coming in for the United States dollar. So 3:30, we got retail sales month on month, core retail sales month on month. Then not long after, 4:15, industrial production month on month coming in. 5 o'clock then, still on the dollar, it'll be business inventories month on month and retail inventories month on month. Finally, 8:30 tonight, which we probably won't still be trading 8:30, but if we are, Fed Chair Jay Powell will be making a speech. So yeah, a lot of things on there that could have an impact. So particularly we'll be looking at 12 o'clock for the EU employment change and GDP. But realistically, it's this one right here that's probably going to make the trend. If a trend is going to happen, if an impact is going to change, it's likely going to start with the first of the US numbers, these retail sales at 3:30. They'll probably start crashing it, and then 8:30, Jay Powell will come out and fix it all. Yeah, so we'll be looking out for those European numbers in very little bit over an hour there. Otherwise, it'll just be the crossover that we're looking for. We need that downward price. We want to see it below the 50, below the 200, get that 50 turning and get us into a sell trade. Price getting on a bit of a run there as it gets to a higher high from here to here. Yeah, look at that run there. I think we are going to be waiting for an entry, and we only missed it by just a few moments. I mean, if we were in, say, either of these candles here, that wouldn't have stopped us out, so we would have been on a nice run about now. It's going to take a long while for this to correct where this is actually going to cross back over. Hopefully these 12 o'clock numbers can change the direction. Something weak for the euro perhaps would be useful for our strategy right now. Never mind the employment and GDP of millions across the Eurozone. We're just interested in seeing the euro get weaker, get below that 50 and 200, give us a crossover, not keep pulling further away. We are seeing price now come down a little bit below the 50. It's closed for the last 2 periods as the 50 has been running up pretty quickly before. Still trading the 200 a good way though. It's just ranging between the 50 and the 200 at the moment, the last 10 minutes or so. Less than 2 minutes, we got those big euro numbers now. That's the GDP and the employment for the quarter. If a lot more people are unemployed than we thought there would be, or if the GDP is a lot weaker than we thought it would be in the Eurozone, that is what could cause the price to come down and then allow us to be able to get into a nice crossover trade. Here's hoping. Okay, here comes the release. Bit of a delayed increase in the volume. We are seeing it now. The last couple of minutes have had a spike up. There wasn't really anything at the open. Price is going consistently down though, or the euro's price is going consistently down. Big drop in price in that last candle there was sort of starting to range just up and down, and that's taken a major hit south below the 200. We see that 50 following in a steep chase. Good signs for us potentially getting in a trade shortly. The drop continues right now. There's a lot of downward pressure going on. Price having a bit of a bounce up after those big sell-offs there. It will need to get a high on if it wants to stop the crossover though, because that 50 is hurtling towards the 200. It was looking promising. Now it's looking pretty uncertain. You can see price hopped up over the 200 and the 50 in that candle there. They were getting really tight together, and they still are going to get a little bit closer together for a period or two. But if price goes on up this 50 line, it will skirt away from the 200 and it will avoid that crossover, leaving us waiting. They are still getting a little bit closer together, these lines, but that 50 is flattening. The 200's coming up, and there they are touching the lines. This is going to be very tight. The 50 is still coming down a notch as well, with the 200 going up. So yeah, we could see it. We could see that crossover in a period or two. I'm just going to pull up the ATR so we can prepare ourselves on that front if the crossover does come. There it is, currently reading at 1 pip. That will be our minimum, as you've seen in part 1. So there it's dropped to 9 pipettes. If we do enter, it will still be at 1 pip ATR value that we'll take it as, which for a 3 times ATR value is 3 pips either way. Yep, and the 50 is in fact sneaking through the 200. Let me zoom in there just in case you can't see that. It's a little bit of blue sneaking through the purple line there. And that will be our entry signal if this closes beyond the purple. So it has closed through there, which means we can look at our ATR and see it's still at 9 pipettes, so we can round that to 1 pip. Let's calculate our risk. So you can see that on screen now based on our account balance of £97,089. Let's get in the trade before it drops too much. Okay, so we have our 2 sell trades there at 11.17 and 11.17. So let's put our stop loss here at 30 points, and we'll put the take profit for that one at 30 points. And for this one here, stop loss at 30 points. And as we've said in the previous videos, as soon as that take profit triggers, or if it triggers, that will mean that we can change this to a trailing stop loss. So let's set that in. Let's zoom out one. So you can see here the range that we're working in. We've got our take profit down here, and we've got the stop loss above here. So not a bad position to get in if it does want to come down for us. Just want to say one of the reasons why I'm rounding up to 1 pip from here as opposed to just going, well, say that's 8 pipettes, can we just go for 2.4 pips? It's because we use so much margin on the 1 minute chart where it's so tight. They don't know that we're going to close it off after 3 pips or 4 pips. They don't know that. So you can end up, when you're only looking at like a 2 pip stop loss, you can end up using all of your margin or too much of your margin to actually be able to open the trade. You can see here we're currently using 76,000 of our available margin with only 20,000 left. Getting very close to our take profit level here. It's looking nice. We are very close now. If we can just go a little bit further. And there we go. We finally get the take profit to trigger after that range. So we can switch this up here. The trailing stop is going to be 30 points behind. Let's pop that in. And there we see the trailing stop loss proc forward there. So we are in guaranteed profit, which is fantastic, especially after some of those losses we took yesterday. Although, has to be said, we've got to watch these 50 and 200 closely still, because they are nearly touching. And if that 50 goes above there, again, we'll be closing out this trade profit, for however much profit we're in, and then we'll be entering a buy trade. And even now, actually, we can see the 50 is touching just past. Can't zoom in anymore, but I can see a whisper of blue line coming across that 200 there. If that closes like that, and price is still coming down, so it might not. There it's not. See, there it's fully overlapping. So right now, we won't be entering the trade. And so after that big decrease in price there, they're still overlapping. The 50 now not poking through at all, coming back under the other way. And we can see that trading stop loss has moved quite a bit from the entry price, which is always good, bagging up more profits for us. Starting to see a tiny bit of air now between the 50 and the 200. As price continues to come down, there is a lot of selling pressure going on there. And this was very, very close to being a crossover, and still could be if price launched back upwards. That line is tweaking up and down a little bit there. Did retrace for a couple minutes back there, but we are getting a little bit more out of that trailing stop loss now, as these lines are very much moving apart. They touched again there, but you can see they've come apart, and now there's a real gap forming. The drop continues. It's looking good for us when it comes to the profit margin. and the trailing stop loss triggering there, but it certainly served its purpose. We did manage to get about 6.5 pips out of it, which the take profit of the first trade was 3 pips. So we managed to get over twice the amount out of that trailing stop loss. So pretty good trade there. Price with a bit of a bump for the first time in a while there. Not really been doing much at all this last 30, 40 minutes or so since we were in the trade. Hopefully that boost there is a sign of things to come, as the 50 and 200 at the moment still quite a way apart. Price coming up a good bit now. That's the moves we want to see. Getting a higher high to there and then a higher high again to there. See that keep pushing, and we should see these lines start to come together quite a bit more. Price had gone above the 200 a little bit there, but it's dropped way back down now. The last 5 or 6 periods it's come right back down below the 50. And price really starting to come down here. We are a minute away from the New York Forex session open. We cannot get in on this as we don't have the re-entry signal, but we are watching price crash down heavily. And we have managed to get a bit of a reversal going at the moment. It's gone up, what we got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 consecutive periods it's gone up, and just floating a little bit above the 50 for a second there. Bit more selling pressure starting to come in as we're 2 minutes off from these retail numbers. Here come the numbers. Price very jittery. Look at this range on this one candle. 9 pips top to bottom so far, and now it's further. 10 pips. So you can see the massive increase in volume and volatility that's come. These retail sales numbers, they are coming in negative for the dollar. So they were forecast at 0.1%. They've come in at minus 1.1. The euro is the one that's getting weaker at this minute though, but we're likely to see this volatility continue back and forth before an overall trend is decided. But this is dropping fast, so it could just be sell off the euro, get in on the dollar. Core retail sales down negative 0.4%, and they were predicted at 1.4, so that's a miss as well. And the last one of these month-on-month retail figures, the retail control coming in at negative 1% when it was forecast at 2.6. But again, the dollar is getting stronger, we're seeing right now. We are seeing price come back a little bit here. That is a bounce for sure. Hopefully it's more than just a retracement, but it does seem to want to come back down as we're on 5 straight red candles and looking at potentially another one here. And that little green candle there just ended the streak of 13 red candles in a row. A lot of downward pressure even after that volume's leveled off even more. Breaking out from a bit of a range there, again we're seeing back-to-back candles with drops on them. Price really going down. The dollar is rallying big time. Continued sell-off, looking like strawberry fields forever out there, nothing but red. And now it's pretty much just been ranging for the last half an hour or so. We've got just under 10 minutes before we get these retail and business inventory numbers. That might shake things up, but at the moment, 50 and 200 still a long way apart from each other. I don't know how much impact these month-on-month inventories are going to have on the price here. Probably not a lot at all, if any, but hopefully the retail and business inventories are absolutely depleted, way worse than forecast, and we see a strong move in favor of the euro against the dollar. Yeah, so not much movement coming off those inventory numbers. Price fairly stable, coming down a little bit, again below the 50. And those 50 and 200 lines are still very far apart. Wide margin there. How far are those? It's 18 pip difference there. They're not the type of numbers that are going to change the direction here without anything major, which hasn't come. The next big thing that could happen is Powell speaking at 8:30, but that is over 3 hours away. So we're going to leave it there with this session. We did get out one trade in from this sell, and that feels a long time ago now that we were out, but at least we did get to make profits. So let's review that trade over in the journal. So here we are in our journal for the moving average crossover. You can see our one trade at the bottom there. That was a gain, which is excellent. We needed that after those 3 losses above it that all came yesterday. And we managed the trade pretty well also because it had that very near crossover that we were almost sort of thinking that's going to poke through. Is it not? Those are the really tricky areas that people generally don't explain it when they're showing you a strategy. They just say, "Oh, just do it." And you think, no, you have to actually sit there and wait for it fully to confirm. And sometimes it really does come down to the wire like that. So I was pretty pleased with how that trade went, especially then with the VIP of it, the trailing stop loss, catching a lot of profits there, making us back a good chunk of our money. So hopefully in session 3 tomorrow, hopefully we can get a couple more of those into the journal and get ourselves into green. Now that would be pretty well appreciated. So thank you for watching, and hopefully we'll see you in the next session.